What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Angling Unraveled. This week, Doug and I are going to have Jordan from Jewel Bait Co. on and Travis from he's fishing the MLF Invitationals this year. So it's going to be a really fun episode. We're going to go into baits that Jordan and Travis have been working with at Jewel and going to the scope spin a little bit, maybe some other stuff that Jewel's working on. You got anything else you want to add, Doug?
We'll kind of go into maybe some of what Travis is looking forward to this year, how his year went last year, because he had a really good year. So definitely stay tuned. If you want to learn something about fishing winter fish and deep water, we're probably going to get into that a little bit too. So,
all right. Well, without further ado, we'll bring him in.
What's up, fellas?
How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing good, man.
Yeah. So you, Travis, you're getting things around and ready to go to start the year off, huh?
Yep. It'll be here before you know it. I think Rayburn goes off limits, I think January 7th or something. So
okay.
Pretty sure January 1st, I'm going to head down there and spend what little time I've got left before the off limits.
Oh, there you go. That'll be a good time. That place should be on fire at the end of February like that.
Yeah.
It should be really sweet.
If we can just avoid all the stumps down there and not have a Doug mow.
Yeah, I was out there a few weeks ago with a buddy, or I guess about a month ago, and it was crazy. Like, I couldn't believe how many stumps were out there. He's like, if you don't have the mapping card with the updated lanes and stuff, he's like, you're hitting one.
Yeah.
And he's got it and had like 100 lanes, and I'm not kidding you. We were running, and I looked over, and we were about that far from one. And I was like, he's like, and he looks over, and he's like, oh, I guess we cut that one a little close. And I was like, yeah, you think?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't need to be looking at Doug.
Yeah, that's one of those that it's like, man, spend a little bit of money to have a chip or whatever they've got available to help you run safely on there. Obviously, there's going to be places, stumps that probably slip through the cracks or whatever that aren't marked.
We're all about those.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Jordan, go in and tell us a little bit about Jewel and what all you guys do and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jewel Bait Company has been around for almost 35 years now. Our 35-year anniversary will actually be in May, which will have some really cool, exciting stuff coming from that. But our owner and founder, Dale Julian, founded and started Jewel in his garage. Gail was in the medical supply business, so he manufactured medical supplies and devices. And so he wanted to bring that same medical precision to bass fishing because there was nothing like there at the time on the market that was anywhere near that precise. And so Gail came up with some pretty unique processes that are actually totally unique and proprietary to Jewel Bait Company and KG Enterprise, which is our manufacturing arm, that allow us to be able to manufacture our baits and be more precise pretty well than anyone else in the entire industry.
Yep.
So much of the industry spends time spin casting, where they'll use 2 silicone molds and they'll load it up with 24 to 32 hooks and pour molten lead in there. Well, the issue with that is you have a lot of room for error. When you start spinning those, hooks start moving everywhere, lead starts moving everywhere, the whole shebang. It can cause a lot of trouble to take place. And so what we do is we make all of our molds out of aerospace grade billet aluminum, the best stuff you can get. And by using that and by formulating our own lead, we get our lead straight from the smelter and then formulate it in-house to make it as hard or as soft as we want it to be. And through that, then we are able to make what, in our opinion, are the best jigs on the entire market, best spinner baits, everything under the sun. Live spin, like we talked about earlier, a whole variety of different baits. And
along with the precision that he's talking about, some of the other companies out there, some of their jigs can vary by an eighth of an ounce.
Yeah, or
sometimes. You know, it could say it's a 7/8 of an ounce jig, and it could be a 3/4 jig or even a 1 ounce jig. And it can vary by that much just because of the quality of lead that they use and the methods that they use to make the jigs. Whereas Jewel is going to be, if you're throwing an 11/16 ounce jig, it's going to be 11/16 of an ounce every single time.
To the penny. We're more precise than the human hair.
Yep.
I know that a couple times I've been over there, they've got a crazy system built up, like thermometers on the lead pot, and like 950 degrees is what it's supposed to stay at, and it never gets below 949, never gets above 951. It's wild to see.
Yeah, we stay within about 2-degree temperature swing. Is about the most temperature swing we'll experience on our lead pots, and that's due to we have a system where the lead lowers through a system. The pots have a sensor in them, so there's never any of that shock when you're adding new lead to a pot. So it continues to stay at that temperature. You might drop 2 degrees, but that's the most you're going to drop.
I know that the first time I was ever in the factory and I got to look around, it absolutely blew my mind. I never in a million years would have figured making jigs was like that. But it's the coolest thing that I've ever seen. You know, being in the fishing industry and fishing for a living, it's one of the coolest things that I've ever been a part of now, I guess. But yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Anybody that comes is blown away by what our process is.
Yeah, it's more than just putting some lead in a pot, and it's more than just your little do it mold. You know, pour 3 or 4 at a time. No, it's crazy to see like how many they can turn out.
For sure.
That's I never even thought in the wildest dreams that there'd be that much that goes into making some jigs. But I know Doug showed me a bunch of them, and I've played with them, and they're unbelievable. They are like top notch, like quality and everything.
Yeah.
And we went on a little catching spree out here at my mom's catching pond with them here this summer.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so with also doing all those things to make the lead as best it can be, also for almost all of our jigs that we manufacture, they all feature a custom hook because we want that jig to operate at optimum levels that it's supposed to be. What most companies do is they buy a stock hook. They look in a catalog where it's Mustad, VMC, Victory, whoever the hook company is, and they'll buy a stock hook with stock bends in it, and that's how they'll make their jig. Well, with us, we design the hook. That's the first thing we do in our CAD software drawing, and then we design the bait around the hook so that it will accomplish and do the job that it's meant to do. So, like, for example, our 11/16 flipping jig, I've taken people out on the water before, and I've taken the weed guard out of the jig, and they're blown away. I'll go down a row of bushes, flipping bushes with that jig. And occasionally you'll get hung up just because there's no weed guard there at all. But because of the balance of the head and the way the hook and everything's there, you almost don't even need a weed guard.
That's one of my favorite jigs to flip. It's a bad little dude, I can tell you that.
Oh, best jig we've ever made, in my opinion. Yep. I have on the front deck 365 days out of the year.
So now that the winter months are here, primarily the Bull Shoals area, and there's these highland reservoirs, the fish are typically a little bit deeper. Do you guys have any tips that you could give to the viewers on how to fish for these winter fish with like what baits work? How would you guys approach it?
Yeah, I'll let Travis kind of take it. He's more of a deep water fisherman than I am. So he can really tell you from the deep perspective, and then I can kind of tell you from a shallow water perspective, kind of some of the stuff that I would do.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like your electronics are insanely critical and it's having the whole system from the network of graphs at the back of the boat to the front of the boat, all that stuff. I run Lowrance. That's what I'm comfortable with. I think it offers the best all around stuff. But I mean, you end up putting a bunch of hours on your motor just because you idle. And I mean, you don't typically this time of year you don't find the shad or you don't find the bass if you don't find the shad. So I know last year on Bull Shoals, I fished a tournament, and it was like noon, and we had like 3 or 4 small ones. And I told my buddy, I'm like, hey, man, this is going to really suck the next probably at least hour. But I said, we're just going to run into every one of these creeks and idle and try and find shad. And if we find them, we catch them. But if we don't, we're not going to catch them. And we did. I mean, we ran 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9 creeks, finally found them in one. And I was like, all right, we got an hour. Now it's time to catch them. And then we caught them and ended up winning the tournament. But, yeah, spending a lot of time at the console, graphing, looking for shad. And then, like Doug had said, these fish, I know he got to fish over here on Bull Shoals, and he was blown away at how deep some of the fish he caught. And it's all about your heavy baits this time of year. I mean, some of these fish can get, I think the deepest one I've caught is like 80 something. I know some people catch them 90, 100 feet deep, which is, some people that's unfathomable. Like I took a guy a couple years ago, and he caught 150 feet, and he's just standing there like after he caught it, and you could just kind of see like the puzzled look on his face. And I said, what's wrong? And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, yeah, the lake just got a whole lot bigger, didn't it?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. But going back to what I was saying, it's all about your heavy baits this time of year. So like the scuba spoon, that's a great one just because it's a chunk of lead. It's as simple as can be, it gets down there as quick as can be. Something you put in their face, it looks like a dying shad. You can hop it as much as you want, keep it still, whatever. That bait is responsible for a ton of fish caught around these parts this time of year. And then the live span, which just come out last year, that is also another great bait. I typically like dropping the spoon on the ones that are closer to the boat, and then if you've got some that are out there from 50 to 100 feet, that's where the live spin really comes to play. And then your Demiki rigs, your ice jigs. I mean, it's all about getting the bait in front of a bass, And so, before the advent of all this forward facing sonar, a 1/4 ounce jig head to me seemed like that's a big jig head.
Yeah.
And now it's like, man, can I get a 3/4? Can I get a 1 ounce? Like, how can we make this jig head as heavy as we can and still maintain, still be able to put, a 2/0, 3/0 hook in it? It's pretty wild. Some of the stuff that, has been born from forward facing sonar, but it comes down to you're not going to catch the fish if you don't get the bait in front of the fish. So
for sure. Yeah, we've learned more about fish than ever with the invention of forward-facing sonar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember my dad. We would always fish in the fall, and I grew up a shallow power fisherman, and I hated fall fishing. I mean, I couldn't stand it. I'm like, and you'd hear all these people talk about the fall feed, and I'm like, dude, I don't think a bass eats anything in the fall. And then I get forward facing sonar, and I'm like, well, it's not over here up on the bank. It's out here in the middle where all these fish are getting fat.
So Del Colvin just commented, and he's the guy I went out with. If you guys are looking for a guide to go out on Bull Shoals with, he's definitely the dude to get
the
with.
man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, Doug told me a little bit about that trip, about how many fish he caught, and I was like, "That's crazy." And he told me, he's like, "I'm gonna end up having to make a trip out there to go meet with that. That sounds like
Absolutely.
a blast."
Yeah. But
literally, as soon as Jordan and Doug left today, they went to absolutely biting.
That's usually how it typically goes.
Yeah.
I was talking to Gail when I got back to the house here too, and he said they really bit today too in the afternoon. So
yeah, that makes sense. It's been a late bite, which is pretty typical this time of year, where it's a late in the day bite.
Yeah.
It's just pretty normal.
It's kind of weird how it'll transition, like as the spring goes on, as pre-spawn and stuff.
Yeah.
transition to like, man, if you don't catch them in the first 2 hours, it gets
The
tough.
struggle. Yeah. And that transition happens so fast too.
Yeah. It is wild how like today, I mean, it was very, very tough. We'd find shad and stuff, and you'd see some bass around them, but they just weren't set up right. And then as it went on, those shad, what ended up happening, for the most part today, the shad were pretty well stuck down on the bottom. And then they kind of started suspending, 15, 20 feet off the bottom. And as soon as you start seeing that, it's like,
Yep.
Here we go.
It's
That's what you've been waiting for all day.
Yeah.
That's typically when Big Mama starts showing up too.
Yeah. That's when you guys get that new scope spin and throw that thing down there.
Absolutely.
There could be some cool things happening also at Jewel within, the next year or so.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll leave that hanging as that.
Yeah.
Not get too much away, but
that
big stuff taking place.
Ooh, I'm interested to hear about what's going on, or at least watching and seeing.
Yeah.
And that scope spin though, that thing is sweet. I know Doug showed them to me earlier in the year and was like, before we go to Lanier, he's like, you need to have them. And I
smashed that Lanier with that thing.
And I was like, I looked at them and I meant to order them, and then I kept forgetting. And then I was like, I asked him at I think during practice, I was like, you got any of them things? And he's like, I only got like 4 of them. And he's like, and I'm throwing them in the middle of a brush pile, and there's no way I'm going to have all of them at the end of the end of the tournament. So, and also I'm not making that mistake again. So I'll be getting me some of them things here soon. And then his video that he was doing on is blowing up, and them things are just sweet.
Oh, cool thing about it, obviously they're a great bait around here because, it looks like 2, small shad. It's a heavy bait that you can get down to them, but also those herring fish, like you're talking about Lanier. Herring is always on the move. And that little deal, does a great job of imitating, a couple herring moving across there. And it's something that, like on Hartwell and, Lanier and some of those places got the cane piles that top out pretty shallow. That's still something that you're able to throw. And even if it does top out, 5 feet, sometimes, I mean, those spotted bass over there on the East Coast, speed kills kind of deal for them. And that's a fantastic bait for that kind of stuff.
Well, and we're learning more and more with the live spin too, that it can almost be a 365-day out of the year lure, just depending on where you're at, where the fish are set up. The bait was originally developed by Lyndall Helms. It was developed in the post spawn. Is when it was originally developed. He moved up here from Mississippi, which is straight up shallow water, beat down, flipping and pitching. And came up here to Bull, and he started figuring out how to catch these fish drop shotting. Well, he learned real quick that a lot of times those fish set up pretty far away from you, anywhere from 60 to 100 feet away from you. And those fish are hard to get the bite on a drop shot, doing that even if you're casting it. And so just over the last 7-8 years, really went through a lot of development of the bait until it finally came to what it is today.
Yeah.
And it was being able to have a bait that would stay at that level throughout the water column. So for him, fishing that in the post spawn was fishing it over treetops, fishing it over brush piles. Then also you had the thermocline, being able to keep something right above that thermocline. And so that's where the live spin really shined. But then now with the invention of forward-facing sonar, we're seeing how amazing that bait truly is in the winter and pre-spawn.
I can tell you, I spend a lot of time at Gunnersville, and that bait's got a lot more purposes than what it was made for.
Yeah, for sure.
You can use it just like a 6-inch flutter spoon or an 8-inch flutter spoon. Does the same exact thing. Depends. If you find them under a school of thread fins, there's probably not much that's going to beat that live spin as far as working it like a spoon down there. And even in shallow grass, it can work really well too. So I've been playing with that, but it's a really cool bait, and I'm excited to see what's coming. But I'm going to get some, and I'm going to get them and take them up to Lake X this summer, Doug. And they would
You
eat
know
it.
how
Fire out.
them giant smallies that we found up there this year that were being stubborn. I bet you throw that thing over the top of them, they ain't even gonna hesitate.
Yeah.
And
With that being said, too, it weighs an ounce, so you can get it down to those 30-foot depths where we were seeing those fish, and it gets down there in a hurry. And that's the biggest part is getting it down to them. Like Travis was saying, you can't catch them if you don't get the bait to them. They got to see it first. So.
Or 50 and 60 foot at Saginaw, Doug.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be fun, dude. I'm excited for you to go to that one. I'm ready I want to watch that one. But so Travis, which event on your guys' schedule are you most excited for this year?
I'm really looking forward to Rayburn.
Yeah.
I've only been there once, but I liked how it set up. I liked how it fished whenever I was there. I'm very excited that there's no Okeechobee River, Potomac River, straight up grass fishing. That ought to be fun. And then really Eufaula in May down in Alabama. That should be a good one. Offshore.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Not at all looking forward to Champlain, huh?
Well, I've never been up there, so I'm kind of cautious about it because I'm afraid that I'll fall into the man, I'm catching them so good, this is awesome, and then you bring in 16, 17 pounds, and they just like, what are you doing? Like, get off my stage, So I'm looking forward to that part of it. But I'm also it also kind of scares me a little bit just because that's such a different ball game than what we've got on here.
Yeah.
That Detroit River will humble you a little bit too. Them depending on which way you go, if you run, because you guys are putting in at Elizabeth Park. Mm-hmm. So running north to Saginaw, running south to Erie. I mean, that's gonna be an interesting one because both of them have fish that Erie's got bigger ones in my opinion. But I don't know. It can go either way, and the river will have them too. River will have a 20 plus pound bag sitting in it for multiple days if you can get in the right spots. But but they move a bunch. Same thing like Erie and St. Clair. They both just like you'll be watching live scope, and then for literally like a 500-yard stretch, you'll just watch nothing but it's like 5 fish tall and as wide as they can be, and it'll just keep going across. And then all of a sudden they're gone, and you won't see them again for 4 more hours.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
That's the crazy thing with live scope, seeing how fast the fish moves.
Yeah.
We never understood how fast they move, especially in the wintertime here. We used to think in the wintertime here that they're lethargic, don't move around, and they're moving around so fast today on the scope. I mean, if you didn't get something down there fast enough to them, they were gone before your bait even got down there.
Yeah. And that's what bred all these baits whose main usage, it's a heavy bait. It gets down to them, gets there quick. We're still able with the technology we've got. We're just seeing it on a 2-dimensional screen. And we don't know if that fish is going left, right. I mean, we're seeing it at that particular point, and if you see it there, you got to get a bait there as quick as you can.
Absolutely.
You got to learn how to lead them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pain.
Travis, you had a pretty dang good year this year. What was your favorite tournament that you fished this year?
It's hard not to say Clark's Hill, in more ways than one. So the season started off. Marty Stone, he talked to me at Clark's Hill, and he had a pretty good quote. He said, you didn't finish dead last, but you're pretty close next door neighbors, I mean, I think 146 or 47. I don't know what I finished at Kobe, but I mean, bottom of the barrel, scraping along, and to go from there and get second place at Clark's Hill, like, because there's so much of this game is a mental side of it. So after Okeechobee, it's a 22-hour drive home or whatever. And so for 22 hours, I get to think, am I really supposed to be here? Am I good enough to do this? And over and over and over in my head. And so then to have the tournament that I did at Clarks Hill, obviously the financial side was huge, but just the, to add to the mental side of it. And it was a fun way, like how to catch them. I went into that one thinking it was going to be a scoping tournament, and I ended up way upriver. I mean, didn't have any of my electronics on. I had my trolling motor. I had to cut the black tape off my transducer cord so I could get my trolling motor as high up out of the water as I could, and was like dragging on the bottom and still throwing back in these flats, and catch them on a swim jig. So that was a fun one. That's probably the one that'll like stick with me the most. And even though I didn't win it, like I don't know, it's kind of odd. I had a kind of easy feeling over me, like whenever I weighed in that third day. I knew I had a big bag. I knew I had like at least an opportunity, and that's really all you can ask for. But I kind of had an easy feeling, like, okay, like I don't feel like I'm supposed to win this one. Like I wasn't really like too let down, when I ended up, finishing second, getting knocked off. But that was definitely the most memorable for me this year.
I definitely was watching that tournament, and I was watching what you were doing. And I had talked to you. I was like, where were you,
Yeah.
Because I spent a fair amount of time at Clarks Hill. And I mean, that place is a humbling lake.
Mm-hmm.
It used to have a lot like drill in it years ago, and then the Corps engineers killed it all, and the lake completely changed. And it's a herring lake too, which makes it even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really hard lake to fish, and you were the only one. Well, John Cox was catching them shallow too, but you were like one of the only dudes catching them shallow, and everybody else was live scoping. And I'm like, man, where is that guy?
I know that it's pretty funny that you say Clarks Hill, because I think that lake's been brought up probably the most the most times out of any lake that we've talked about on here. Seems about like every other week or every third week, like someone's either talking really good about it or really bad about it. There's no in between on it.
Yeah. And that one was cool just because, like, whenever we went there, there's not a whole bunch of information out on it. I mean, none of the big trails had really been there in a while, so it was really it was the biggest unknown, going into it. Like, what is this place gonna fish like? And I'd talked to some buddies from over there, and one of them, he was like, man, he's like, you can't win it up the river. You can't win it up the river. He said, it'll burn you one day, and even though he was correct, he was still like, dude, I never would have thought, you'd come even close to catching what you did up there. But it was one of those days. That third day was like, it was just some kind of magical day that, we've all sat there at home watching Bassmaster Live, MLF, FLW, whatever. And you see a guy just smashing them on the third day, and you're like, man, that'd be so fun. And so to be able to like be the one in the driver's seat, getting to actually do it, not just watch it.
Which rod were you using with that swim jig?
That one, I was throwing the 7.6, the flip pitch. And for that, it was just a necessity to make as long of a cast as you possibly could.
Yep. That 7.6 is good for that.
Yeah, it honestly, that rod, I looking back on it this year, I've caught big ones doing that on it, caught big ones actually flipping with it, caught big ones throwing a spoon on it, caught big ones on a plopper on it. I mean, I was thinking back, I'm like, dude, I threw so many different baits on that rod, and for it being a 7.6, that's one of the things that Jordan and I talked about after that tournament. And I didn't realize it in the day, but like, I was throwing that swim jig, like I said, I mean, I was throwing it as far back there as I could, rod tip high, and like pumping that swim jig hard. And after the tournament, I was like, not that worn out by it, and I've used other rods that were a heavier, more draining rod in the end, and to fish something like that, I mean, it was like, 100 mile an hour all day long. And the lightness and the power of that rod, I definitely attribute that last day. And started that third day, I think my third fish was a 5.7, and then my fourth fish was a 6.4, and I didn't think the 6.4 was that big, and I ended up boat flipping it. and it grew about the time it left the water, and I was like, oh my gosh, please. But the power of that rod and all that. I mean, I got her head up coming, and I was like, for better or worse, so just keep the gravy train rolling, and it worked out. But
just got both flip them all, man. Every one of them.
I think I boat flipped the rest of them that day, but I unfortunately didn't have another shot at a 6'4" like that. But if it worked out once, maybe it'll work out again.
Yep. You just won a big $10,000 tournament too, didn't you?
Yep. Yeah. Beginning of the month. Yeah. There was an Oak Outdoors on Table Rock, a 2-day tournament. And there's a bunch of, you look at that, and there's a bunch of the local guys around here that, scary guys to go up against, and was fortunate enough to have one pretty good day the first day, and then had a really, really good day the second day, and made up ground and won by like 0.04, I think. If he's throwing a 3/4 ounce jewel football jig and the fish eats it too deep, he beats me by that. Yeah. That's how close that one was. But and that goes to show you, truly, and I've been in this position where you're like, man, when am I going to win one? Like, I was supposed to win this one. It's like, dude, when it's your time, it is your time.
Yeah. You stop it.
Up at Lake of the Ozarks, I caught one fish on day 3 and won. If that does, I caught almost 24 pounds in one tournament on the third day and got second. And then in another tournament the same year, I caught one keeper and won. So it's just, it's a cool sport that we all love.
Yeah.
But man, it can be stressful. But like I said, when it's your time to win one of these, you can't help but mess it up. I proved that. I obviously tried to day 3 at Lake the Ozarks by only bringing in one, but that's just how that's how it rolls sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be like nerve-wracking. You're coming in with one fish, like, man, I just blew it, and I don't know what else to do. Like the emotions that go through you, like there's nothing else that describes it. And then to get in, and then to go from like you're so mad at yourself to like on top of the world, like that's something that a lot of people never understand. Like it feels so amazing.
Yeah, you go from like, I know me, I was like, man, good job. You just squandered this perfect opportunity. Had a 5-pound lead going into the third day, and you bring one stinking fish in, like, come on. And then you start hearing, well, this guy's only got this, and this guy's only got that. And then you got to play, you're playing mathematician, crunching all the numbers. And this guy says he's got 18, and he weighs in 14. And it's like, okay, well, if he didn't have what he had, this guy might not have what he's got. And it's just,
Yeah.
And of course, the day 3 weigh-in, they dragged that out, and so
as long as possible.
That probably took some years off my life, but it was worth it to finally get one of those first place trophies from NLF.
Yeah. Wasn't that your first tournament after being married too?
First big tournament after being married.
Yeah.
One of my buddies, I don't know if he's trying to jinx me or just scare me, but the night before the tournament, he said, man, I don't know about you, but I don't ever fish good with my wedding ring on. He said, I always, like in a tournament, I always take it off. And I was like, well, I've been wearing mine all week, so I'm just going to keep on rolling with what got me here. And like my third or fourth cast, I caught a 5-pounder that first morning, and I was literally like, yep, not bad luck for me.
All right.
Let's keep going.
It's all okay.
Yeah.
And having
that's awesome, man.
I was gonna say I got to give a shout out to my wife Mackenzie. Before that tournament, she was like, when are you gonna go over there and practice? What are you doing this week? And I'm like, I got to do this and this. She's like, well, you need to go up there and practice. Your buddy, I saw this buddy, he's up there. I saw his Instagram story. He's fishing. Why aren't you up there? So to have someone that does push me and support me for that kind of stuff, makes all the difference. Instead of having, could have a significant other that's like, mad every time you leave, walk out the door to go fishing. But to have someone that, is lovingly like pushing you out the door, like, hey, if you're going to support and, do this, like, support us both. Like, you got to go put the work in. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a cool part about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I know how you feel right there. My wife's the same way, where she's real supportive of it. Like this year on tour, she followed me around and actually did the photography for me and Doug, like in blast offs in the morning and when we're up on stage and stuff like that. So it makes it a lot more memorable and stuff like that. It's really cool and makes it feel a lot more supportive and makes it life doing it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. It truly is. I mean, like a team effort, and up there like the Ozarks, I got to give another shout out to my wife. She's got the back in the boat end. She's nailed it. All 3 days of the tournament, she backed me in there. So that's cool, to have her be a part of it. And like you're saying, there at takeoffs, there at weigh in, all that stuff.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Not to have your wife, Travis, teach my fiance how to back a trailer. It's not going so well.
No,
I didn't say it went well. It's all about the end result. Yeah,
it's all about the end result.
Yeah, I still got to back mine in, and then she just pulls it out.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Well, see, we did that for a while, and I told her, I'm like, look, it's once you get it, it's back. I mean, it's all the same, A boat ramp in Arkansas is a boat ramp in Missouri is a boat ramp in every other state you're going to go to.
Yep.
Unless you go to TVA when they drain the lake 40 feet and you got to back it down 120 feet like this. Oh, I know the first time when I moved down to Tennessee and I looked at one of the ramps, I'm like, oh my.
Yeah.
That's like a country mile going down that thing.
Yeah. See, in college, we had a tournament on Amistad, and it was that way. They had golf carts to ferry people just down the boat ramp. It was that low.
Yeah.
Hey, Amistad's still low right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still real low. I think it's came up a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Last that I had heard. And
I think a lot of lakes around the whole country are kind of low right now. I know Bull Shoals is low.
Yeah, Bull's 9 feet low today.
Yeah.
We don't get any cold weather up here, and your guys are going to be struggling again on Saginaw this year. All them reeds you were in ain't even going to be touchable. You figure it didn't freeze last year, so there's no snow melt or anything there, and then it's not looking so good this year either.
Yeah,
so,
I learned that going smallmouth fishing a couple of years ago, how dependent y'all are on snow melt to whatever the water level is going to be for the year.
Yep.
It's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah. Saginaw, I think, was like 2.5 or 3 foot low last year. And if they go another year, all them reeds are going to be like out of the water so shallow that the only people that are getting back there is someone that's got a bullet or an aluminum boat, John Cox and Keith Carson. I mean, they're about the only ones, and they'll be push pulling it. I mean, all them largies are going to move all the way out into the grass piles or the shell beds and stuff like that out there, or move way out into Huron and just mixing with the smallmouth.
I think I've pretty much made my mind up what I'm doing in the next one anyway. So.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try my best to win that one.
Yeah.
If
you largemouth fish at that one this year, I'm going to smack you.
I don't think I'm going to be largemouth fishing.
I mean, them largemouth will bite you. They're a good thing to have for a backup on that lake and all, but for one day, they're stable enough, but they're not.
I caught the fire out of them in practice at Saginaw. I was on 18 pounds a day, and it burned me.
Yeah. I caught that in about 10 minutes out of that spot.
Yeah.
And then I called you and told you to come catch some too.
Yeah.
And then went back there 3 days later after my boat almost sank, and they're still there. And it's crazy. That place, when they start moving in there, they're stacked up as many as you can catch. But so Jordan, go ahead. What, Doug?
I just said I'm looking forward to getting back there.
Okay. Jordan didn't really tell us a whole lot on what his favorite techniques are for winter fishing. He said he's going to shallow. So let's hear about what you got to say.
Obviously, I still do the deep stuff like Travis does. Obviously, I'm a big fan of throwing a scuba spoon, a live spin, all that stuff. but at heart, I still love to go up shallow and power fish. Uh, and this time of year on bull, I'm doing a lot of the same stuff that Travis is doing. Even for shallow fishing, I'm going to be graphing. I want to see what creeks, coves, guts, where are the bait fish? Because the more bait fish that are stacked in that pocket, in that creek, wherever, then more than likely there's going to be fish in there. Not just fish feeding on the big schools of shad out in the middle of those ditches and guts, but also some way up in the back feeding as well. So I'll go around and graph all that stuff, try to find the shad and see what's going on. And the first thing I'll look and see is I'll see if they are grouped up in shad, are they around any timber? If they're around any brush piles or timber, then naturally the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a jig, whether it's a football jig or if it's like our 11/16 Magnum casting jig, something along those lines, and working through those brush piles and standing timber. But if they're not doing that, I'm going to work my way back into the very, very far back, and probably I'm going to catch them on one of three things more than likely. I'm either going to catch them cranking on a spinnerbait, or I'm going to catch them flipping a jig. It's going to be one of those three things.
Yeah.
And the jig for me is usually after I found them with the crankbait or the spinnerbait. Well, I'm going back there and I'm going down a bank. If I catch two or three going down a bank, cranking or throwing a spinnerbait, then I'm definitely going to go right back through that bank and slow down, and I'm going to flip that big jig. With that big 11/16 flipping jig, it's so compact. It falls like a rocket. So it's almost more of a reaction bite than it is your typical flipping bite. And two, around here on Bull Shoals and Table Rock and even Beaver, we have so many steep banks that have different shelves. And so you can flip that jig up there and work it down each shelf. And with that jig falling as fast as it'll fall, obviously adjust your jig trailers for whatever you want it to do. If you want to glide, put a chunk on it. If you want it to fall really fast, put a beaver style bait on it. If you want it to have a lot of action, you can throw some type of twin tail or rage crawl or whatever, or versa crawl on the back. But that's really what I'm looking for. Is I'm trying to dial in where the bait's at, just like Travis is. But instead of staying out there and focus deep, because it's crazy to think, because everybody used to be on the bank on Bull Shoals. Now you fish a tournament on Bull Shoals, and it's like there ain't nobody on the bank, especially in the wintertime. And so it's really an untapped market still. And so it's something you can go up and really dive into. But the key there is you're going to have to fish slow or fish fast, one of the two. There's not going to be anything in the middle. If you're trying to play the middle ground and fish on moderate speed in the wintertime on our highland reservoirs, you're just not going to catch them. You're going to have to go painfully slow, or you're going to have to go really, really fast. I'm more of on the really fast type of doing it because I want to cover as much water as I can, fish as much new water and fresh water as I can.
What's your favorite crankbait to throw?
So that's a toss-up for me. Obviously, I'm a huge Widowart fan. I mean, I've got boxes upon boxes of Widowars. I'm staring at some of them right now over here in the corner. But I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. A bait that doesn't get thrown often enough here in the Ozarks is a flat side. Does not get thrown anywhere close to often enough. It's something that I grew up doing, and it's something I still do. And I can't tell you how many big bags on Bull Shoals and Table Rock both I've caught fishing a flat-sided crankbait and going behind guys that are throwing a wart. They'll be throwing a wart going down that bank, and I'll go right back behind them with a flat-sided crankbait and catch them right behind them. Obviously, it just depends on what the fish are doing and everything like that, but those are probably my two go-to crankbaits to be thrown. And then obviously a rock crawler is good too.
Yep.
Usually I'll have 3 cranking rods on the front deck this time of year from now until March. I'll have one with a ward on it. I'll have one with a rock crawler, and I'll have one that's rigged up with a flat side and just take off and go.
And if y'all are looking for the perfect rod to throw a wiggle wart on, they literally make one called a wart crawler. It's for rock crawlers and wiggle warts. So
for sure,
super good rod. It's a pretty versatile rod too.
Yeah,
so.
it's the same rod that I'm using as well for a flat side as well.
Yeah, it's not just for warts and crawlers. That thing, yeah, like you said, Doug, is very versatile. I caught so many fish on a square bill on that thing.
Yep,
across the country this year.
I was throwing topwaters with it at Lake Lanier.
For sure.
Yep.
I think it's a really good rod. So obviously, I love our jerkbait rod. I think it's incredible, and love throwing a jerk, Medevac Vision 110 and Vision 110 plus one. But to me, when I'm throwing a Vision 110 plus 2 and really getting it down there, I think that wart crawler rod, it offers me just a little bit more than what I can get from the jerkbait rod.
Yeah. Doug, you're throwing yours on. You're using your wart rod for a topwater. Is it because you don't know how to? You don't have a crankbait in your boat, or?
No, I still.
I mean, we all know how much you love to throw that crankbait. So,
well, I like throwing crankbaits at Gunnersville.
Gail's got to watch out. Make sure some of those wiggle warts there at his house don't go missing over the.
I've got a pile of them.
Doug, you're at Gunnersville. You can throw a freaking hot dog out there and catch a 6-pounder. You reel it fast enough, and I'm pretty sure that there's a 6-pounder in there. Will come
grab
out
a spark plug and put a hook on it.
Yeah, you might as well.
I think per capita, there's probably in Gunnersville more 4 to 6 pound fish than anywhere else in the country right now.
I would 100% agree with that. And that is why I am planning a trip to come down and see you, I think, in April.
Well, I'm going to have a lot of time to do it between pretty much the best time of the year. So
I think March or April, I'll be down there, and on my contract in New Hampshire's up in April. So I'm probably take some time off around then and come down and see you.
It'd be fun in April.
Yeah.
Where is it fun fishing in April?
What was that?
Where isn't it fun to fish in April? Yeah. I mean, all over the country. That's prime time.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, I'll be going down there probably March because St. Clair gets on fire in April with the 3XD, and I'll get on the rock, the shoal beds and stuff like that, the rock shoals, and all. St. Clair's just absolutely unbelievable that time of year. Like, you'll go out there and we'll have 3 people in the boat, and all 3 of us will be tripled up every single cast.
Wow.
And it's unbelievable. And them fish stack up there, and that lake is crazy. When they get into depth, like they're in a depth range, and they're in that one section of lake. So it's unbelievable.
I can only imagine like those fish. Like, I think it'd be the same if our lakes around here, were just unfishable for 4 or 5 months a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then for Michigan for a long time, like the state of Michigan, you actually weren't even allowed to bass fish until after Memorial Day weekend. It was actually a ticket if you got caught bass fishing before that time.
Really?
Now they changed it to catch and release. You can bass fish all year long, but it's catch and release until after. And then St. Clair, you actually can't keep them until mid-June.
And then that's when Canada opens, right?
Yeah. Canada opens like 2 weeks after that. So Canada normally opens up like the last week of June, I think is what it is. Or maybe it's like mid-July. But, their season is a lot different than ours. So it makes it a lot different, a lot more difficult. If you're not paying attention, you can go over there and graph and look all you want with live scope, but you can't cast at them.
Yeah.
Them red coats will come after you.
All you got to do is just have a box of Tim Hortons and be like, "Hey, trade.
just haul ass back across the other side of the border."
Yeah.
But that's what I've always said. Like, it's crazy. Like when we moved to Florida and stuff like that, like how they just get fished all year long, and them fish don't get a break. Yeah. So up north, like I think that's part of the reason why it's so good up north all the time is because them fish don't see a bait for 5-6 months out of the year, depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
But
Could have something to do with it.
I mean, if I didn't eat for 5 months, yeah, I'd be pretty hungry. It's good time.
Matt
Probably
said catch and
5 days
release on
without eating,
Erie.
that'd be bad.
What's that?
So I can't go 5 days without eating, let alone 5 months.
Yeah, no kidding. Doug likes to do them water fast things, and I don't know how he does it.
Water fast. Torture.
Huh?
It's torture for like the first day and a half, and then it gets easier.
Yeah.
You say
And
so.
also, yeah, if you say so. But yeah, so are you have anything else you're doing this year other than the invitationals, or you gonna fish any BFLs? Sir?
I'm gonna fish. So they've actually got a BFL January 6th at Rayburn, so I'm gonna fish that. Just familiarize myself. I mean, I'm a big proponent of like, I think the more tournaments you fish, the better tournament angler you're gonna be. So if like you want to fish tournaments, fish as many tournaments as you can, and whether it's a Saturday jackpot that's got 15 boats in it, or a Toyota series, or whatever you can get in. So that falls just outside of the off limits. So I'm going to fish that. I know they've got a couple on Table Rock this year that if the schedule lines up, I'm going to fish those. And then the Plains series of the Toyotas, or Plains division of the Toyotas.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
Try to make it back to the Toyota Championship. I think that's one of the best bang for your buck deals in fishing. I mean, you got a 1 in 200 shot and $200,000. That's
and all
not
that.
too bad.
Yeah, no. And then do you fish anything, Jordan, or do you just mainly do just fun fish? And
Yeah, I fish a lot of local stuff.
okay.
And so that's about it. I don't travel the country fishing or anything like that. Obviously, working full time for Jewel and doing what I do for Jewel, obviously I've got to stay close to home to be able to do a lot of that stuff. Then also too being engaged, fixing to get married. That kind of keeps me around the house a little bit as well right now. But whenever I can fish a tournament, I try to hop in as often as I can. I probably fished less tournaments this year than I have maybe in the last decade, but that's just kind of how the cookie crumbled this year in 2023. Hopefully 2024 won't be near as bad. Get to fish a lot more stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, so I used to work for Lawrence a couple years back as a surveyor, graphing the lakes, and people always say like once you get in the fishing industry, you actually fish less than anything else. And when I was working there, I fished fewer tournaments than I had in years and years. It's funny how that all like works out. It's like, well, I'm in the industry and I'm surrounded by it, but I still end up fishing less than I would.
Yeah, year before I started working at Jewel, I fished more tournaments that year than probably I fished total in the 4 years I've worked for Jewel, which is crazy to think about. And obviously, zero regrets in that whatsoever. Absolutely love what I do. Wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But definitely, you start fishing way less being in the industry than you did previously.
Yeah, I could see that. And
and fishing trips turn into a lot of the time into lure testing.
Yeah.
So like when we're developing and working on a new product, a lot of time I'll go out there and that's the only lure I'm going to have on the front deck of the boat. I may have multiple different sizes or colors of that bait.
Yeah.
But it's the only lure I'm going to be throwing. So that really limits you. If it's not a day where they're crushing that one bait, it can be a pretty long freaking day. And two, you're focused more than on catching fish too. On with a jig, like how's this bait come through cover? What type of situations and what type of banks does this jig fish the best through? Yeah. And then you start worrying about what's the hookup ratio and landing ratio with this bait. You start playing with all that stuff and keeping track of all that, and then that kind of determines, okay, what tweaks we need to make this lure more efficient, or whatever needs to be done. Sometimes even that changes, whatever size we need to make something into to make it work best.
Juul's really good for that, making sure everything's perfect before it gets released.
Yeah,
there's not a bad product that they make. So
yeah, we take a lot of pride in that, and the nice thing too, like the fact that none of our stuff's made in China. It's all made right here in Midway, Arkansas. We want to make a prototype. Hey, let's sit down and get this prototype made. Let's sit down in the CAD software. Let's design this thing. Let's cut a set of molds on our CNC machine. Let's pour it up. Let's paint it, powder coat it, and let's take it out to the water after lunch.
Yep.
You're talking about, throwing baits and non-optimal times. I'm just sitting here thinking he probably had a trip last year in like April, like with the live spin, trying to get it dialed in before the release. And he's like, they're on the beds and I got to throw this thing.
So I guess it was last May, maybe. It was kind of that situation.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I'm trying to get this thing dialed in, but like the last thing I want to do is be.
We've got a couple tweaks we need to do to make this better.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, I could be throwing something else. But
be throwing something else. Or even too, like when we started working on the HD Pee Wee stuff, when we first did that and we did the 5/8 ounce HD Pee Wee, that was the one that needed the most testing to make sure everything was gonna work. The shallow bite was so stinking good, and here I am out here with a 5/8 ounce football, dragging on the bank. That was pretty tough last spring to adjust to that.
Yeah, I could see how that would be.
Well, I can tell you that scope spin I'm going to have a few of them just for the spawn up here when I go up to Traverse. I normally will throw a 10XD in about 10 foot of water and just dredge it, and I'll go catch 24 pounds every day.
They just came out with a new color, dude.
What's that?
They just came out with a new color that's going to be a smallmouth killer. It's called Lavender Shed. Go on the website and look at it. It's got a little bit of chartreuse on the tail and on the blade.
Yeah.
Man, it's going to be –
The cool thing with it, too, it's got painted blades on it. None of the live spins previously have had a painted blade on them, and this one has a painted blade on it. So a little bit unique flash and action for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I know. Like I said, I've been looking at it for a while, and obviously it's winter right now up here. My boat's shrink wrapped, and it's been driving me nuts. So, and this is the first time I've had to put my boat away in about 3 years. And because I've been in Tennessee for the last few years, and it's eating me alive. I told my brother today, I'm like, I need to get if the lakes don't freeze over by like the week after Christmas, then it's getting on shrink wrap, and I don't care no more. Like it's good. Right. I'm going to take it out in 30-degree weather, and I don't care. And I was like, I got to get out, but yeah.
Well,
and also
we're approaching the hour.
Yeah. I know I got to get off here soon. I got to go get up at 2:00 in the morning to drive to Chicago and catch a flight back to New Hampshire. So, and then go work all night tomorrow night. So,
Travis, you have anybody you want to shout out or others that you want to talk about or anything?
No, I think we've hit it all. Like I said, shout out to my fiance. Shout out to my family. My dad, he's the one that got me into this fishing from a very early age, and that my parents both helped, support me and push me to all this. And thanks to Jordan and Gail and Greg and Russell and all the guys at Jewel and Virtus and all that stuff. I mean, this is my first year with them, and best year I've ever had fishing, better than I could ever dream. So,
see, we just need to rub some luck on you.
Yeah, excited and ready for year 2.
Awesome.
Hey, Doug, you think you can get some of that layer there?
Think I can do what?
I think you can. I said, hopefully you can get some of that luck while you're there.
I need it, man. I've had a
He
rough
was-
year this year, so
Yeah,
He was doing something in my boat. I couldn't quite figure it out, but maybe that's what it was. Trying to
yeah.
steal
He
some of
was
the
in there
juju.
rubbing some of that juju, or passing. Hopefully, he wasn't passing the bad juju along.
Yeah.
No.
You go Rayburn and you
Yeah, we
share a
don't
load
have to say
of
it.
it, you'll know
Yeah.
when it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out real fast if that motor up in the back of the boat or not.
He'll block my number, block me on social media.
Oh,
I never want to
no.
hear the name Doug again.
Never
If he's coming into town, tell me so I can
Yeah.
leave.
If that
No.
happens, I'll just get like a Doug sticker and a circle and a line through it right on the side of the boat.
I'm pretty sure you could probably sell those with the following that I have. So,
Yeah. Oh.
Gordon, where can people go check out the Jewel website, and what kind of just kind of explain to guys how they can go there and look at.
Absolutely. So obviously all of our products are available at jewelbait.com. That's bait singular, no S. So jewelbait.com. Everything that we make from fishing lures, jigs, spinner baits, the live spin, to shaky heads, and obviously our rod lineup, Vertus Jewel rods, all available there on the website. Any questions you have or anything like that about any of our products, obviously you can always message our customer service email or message us on Facebook or Instagram, but also feel free to direct message me on Facebook or Instagram or any places like that as well. I'm always happy to help anybody who's searching and wanting to learn something new about our products or anything like that, or if you just want to talk fishing, I'm always down for that as well. I have guys that regularly call me on my office phone and want to talk fishing, so there's nothing wrong with that. But we'll get you fixed up in any way we can.
Perfect. All right. I just want to thank you guys again for getting on another episode of Angling Unraveled, and we'll be back next week. I think next week we're going to have Nick Brand on. He was a Bassmaster national qualifier this year, finished third or fourth, I think, or third, or I think it was fourth on Hartwell. So you guys stay tuned for that. It'll be a little different episode. But thank you guys again for getting on, and we appreciate you guys.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.